So, what actually happens when a season of suffering lasts so long it starts to feel like your permanent identity? Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're jumping straight into a deeply moving piece of creative writing from imaginarytalks.com. It's inspired by Joel Osteen's message on the limits of prolonged hardship, and man, it really hits home. Let's dive right in.
It brings up a question I think almost every single one of us has grappled with at some point. How do we keep believing when the years have basically taught us to just expect disappointment? To tackle this, our source material does something really fascinating. It imagines 5 remarkable biblical figures, all sitting around one table, sharing their own experiences of agonizing delays and profound loss. To really get this, we first need to unpack the core concept anchoring the whole discussion. It's called the 7th year. Now, rooted in a biblical principle of release, this isn't some literal timetable you just wait out. It's actually a massive mindset shift. It's this absolute stubborn refusal to believe that today's bondage gets to have permanent authority over tomorrow. Which brings us to our first major theme, the trap of time, and what happens when pain becomes our identity. You see, there's this incredibly dangerous shift that happens over time. We start out saying, I am going through this, but eventually we start believing this is who I am. When pain just drags on year after year, it stops being something we merely experience. It slowly morphs into the very name we give ourselves, and without even realizing it, we begin organizing our entire reality around our limitations. The woman with the issue of blood, who suffered a debilitating illness for 12 long years, joins this imaginary conversation to express this perfectly. She says, "Pain hurts once, false hope hurts twice." You can just feel the weight of that, right? Her hope eventually became so quiet, so fragile, she was literally terrified to believe again. But she had just enough hope left to reach out and touch Jesus' garment in a crowded street. Her story is deeply liberating for us. Why? Because it shows that a single act of faith can interrupt a long, stubborn pattern of disappointment. 12 years of pain absolutely do not have authority over the very next moment. And here's the best part. You don't need perfect confidence to reach out. You just need enough to try one more time. We see something really similar with the man at Bethesda. Get this, he waited by a pool for healing for 38 years. He was completely convinced his breakthrough had to come from one specific source, the stirring of the water. He tells Jesus, "Sir, I have no one to put me into the pool." Over almost 4 decades, that excuse had become his entire story. His whole identity had formed around just waiting. And Jesus responds with such a provocative question. He asks, "Do you want to be made well?" Now, Jesus wasn't asking if the man disliked his physical pain. Of course he did. He was asking whether he was ready for a life that wasn't entirely organized around waiting. It's a huge paradigm shift. The man had to learn that God just isn't limited to the one specific method we've been waiting on. Moving on to our next section, the illusion of defeat, and what happens when our reality contradicts the promise. Joseph's life is an absolute masterclass in this kind of tension. I mean, talk about being caught between two worlds. On one hand, you have the pit, representing his incredibly harsh reality. On the other, the dream, representing his divine promise. He had to hold on to this massive vision of leadership while physically being thrown into a hole, sold into slavery, and locked away in a foreign prison. So how on earth did he survive that kind of contradiction without just becoming totally bitter? Well, in this dialogue, he realizes that while the place changed and the work changed, a certain gift kept appearing. Joseph didn't survive by walking around feeling constantly victorious. He survived by remaining faithful in his daily, mundane work. He allowed that incredibly painful delay to build his character for the immense responsibility coming his way. The crucial takeaway here? The prison was not the promise, but it did not possess final authority over his life. Yes, the injustice he suffered was deeply wrong. But the years that felt entirely wasted, they were actually shaping the exact person needed for the next incredible season of his life. This leads us right into our third section, hope after profound loss and the quiet arrival of restoration. Let's look at Ruth. For her, stepping into a new season didn't look like sudden fireworks. It unfolded through very small, totally actionable steps. Step 1 was covenant love, simply choosing to stay with her grieving mother-in-law, Naomi. Step 2 was ordinary work, going out and gathering grain in a dusty field just to survive. And step 3, daily faithfulness. Her restoration literally grew from the ground up, just one single day at a time. There's this fantastic quote from her in the imaginary dialogue that goes, "Grief had stripped life down to what was necessary. There was dignity in bringing something home. I absolutely love that. She shows us you don't have to feel 100% healed, and you certainly don't have to deny your past, just to take one loving, ordinary step forward today.
Now we arrive at Section 4, the mystery of faith and believing without clear explanations. This is where Job's perspective is truly profound. After losing literally everything and having zero clue why, he states, "I learned that mystery is not the same as abandonment." His friends, they tried to forcefully diagnose his pain and blame him for the suffering, but Job proves that we don't always need a neat, tidy answer to remain in the presence of God.
So, what does honest faith actually look like when you're in the darkest valleys? Well, it might just be a question or a breath. It could be a prayer with absolutely no confidence behind it, or just a stubborn refusal to close the door completely. It is so incredibly liberating to realize you do not have to perform certainty or fake happiness to maintain your relationship with God during a hardship.
Which brings us to our final section, embracing your 7th year and the final release. As we pull all of these incredible stories together, we hit the ultimate takeaway for this explainer. What happened to you is part of your history, but it is not your whole identity. Whether your release comes as this massive, sudden breakthrough, like the man at the pool, or it's a slow, grueling rebuilding process like Ruth's, your pain is just a chapter. It is not the whole story. Hope doesn't demand that you pretend the darkness isn't real. It simply asks you to remember this one beautiful truth. The night is present, but the stars are too. Darkness is never the only thing above you. As we wrap up our exploration of this moving spiritual journey, I want to leave you with one final profound thought to really chew on. How is God preparing your heart to recognize your 7th year when it finally arrives? Keep stepping forward, keep looking for those stars, and remember, your story is still being written.